Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are having a panel discussion with very eminent architects, and our own Mr. Anthony John from Schuko will be the moderator for the session. Good afternoon to our viewers who they are watching from all over the world. This is a session especially for you. This is an educative session. It's a learning session. Please be focused wherever you are. Please do stay safe during these tough times. Please wear your mask and please be indoors. Let me start the session with an introduction to all our speakers. We have 5 eminent speakers over here. Let me start with an introduction to what we achieved through these kind of discussions. I'm sharing the screen over here. Hope you're able to see it. Can you see the screen? Can everyone see the
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we can. Yeah.
So I will start with the introduction, a short introduction to what WFM community. WFM community is started by WFM Media, Window and Facade Media. We work for the building and construction community, bringing forward all the problems faced by the community, basically the construction industry. We connect architects, builders, consultants, engineers with the manufacturers of various brands. Our main aim is dissemination of knowledge, discussing the facts, discussing the innovation, discussing technology is our aim, and keep you informed on all these innovation technologies and product. Our aim is to have a self-sustaining growing platform, a networking platform. And I think with the COVID, it is time to rethink our business strategies and get connected digitally. So the connecting brands and influencers is our motto. So let's start with the introduction of our first speaker, architect Cosima Chittawala is based in Mumbai. He's a very prominent name in architecture. He's from the designers group, very, very experienced, more than nearly 30 years. He started his firm designers group in 1988. He's done a lot of projects. He's from the very well-known Rachna Sansad Institution, done architecture, and he's done a lot of projects, and his specialty is hospitality projects. And welcome, architect Cosima. Welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Renu. Thank you.
Our next speaker is a very well-known architect, known to all of you, architect Sheila Sri Prakash. Again, a very, very well-known person. She is from Chennai. She is the founder, principal architect of Shilpa Architects, planners, designers. She started her firm way back in 1979, and she has been honored with various awards from India as well as from abroad. You can just read her profile, which is a very, very long list of honors and the papers which she has presented all over the world. You can go to our website and read. I do not have the time to explain all of them over here. So welcome, architect Sheila. She's a crusader of green architecture. All her projects are green, sustainable, using basic projects. You can go to her website and see her projects too. Working for over 35 years and having such vast experience. Welcome, Sheila. Our next speaker is architect Benny Kuriakose. She is the founder, principal designer of Benny Kuriakose Associates. He's again started his firm in 1984 as an architect, and he's under the tutelage of architect Laurie Baker, of course, my favorite architect too. He received Charles Valence Trust Award for conservation studies from the University of York. He is also a doctorate from Indian Institute of Technology from Madras. He has done a lot of work using natural materials, a lot of conservation projects. Some of his well-known projects are Dakshina Chitra in Chennai. He has done Muziris heritage projects in Kochi, and the palliative medical care unit in Calicut, and so many other heritage projects, including the very well-known tsunami affected village design for the people who are affected in tsunami at Nagapattinam in Tamil Nadu. So he's done a number of resorts also, which is, which shows how natural materials can be used effectively. Our next, welcome sir. Our next speaker is architect Satish Desai. He is from Prio Concepts. He is into planning, architecture, as well as product design. Functional aesthetics and minimalism is his focus. Being sensitive to the environment and the material and the projects and human sensors, that's what he is achieving from his projects, exploring and evolving into various designs. He has been having experience of over 20 years in the field. He has worked with various firms which are very well known, like the GNA, Gayatri and Namit Architects, and many others. His experience spans over a lot of housing projects and a lot of retail projects. Welcome, Architect Satish Desai, to this panel.
Thank you, Reenu.
Next speaker is Architect Ravideep Singh. He is an Associate Director with Creative Design Architects. He is a Delhi-based architectural architect, and he has done his graduation from University of Illinois in architecture, and his specialty is healthcare planning. He's done specialization from Cornell University with the pension designing taste for healthcare architecture. He's been working with firms like HKS and RSP on projects which are very renowned all over the world. At CDA, again, he conceptualizes several award-winning projects, including the AIIMS Guwahati and the Pragma Medical Institute at Bathinda, are few to name. And as I mentioned, architect Anthony John has got over 27 years of experience with the industry, window and doors and facades. He and fenestration professional, everyone knows about him. He has worked with design and operation. He's been involved with product development for products in India as well as in global market. He's a panel member of National Building Code 2016, and he's currently working with the group which is forming the codes and regulations and certification standards with Bureau of Indian Standards. Schuko is a world-renowned firm, German firm, with high-quality window doors, facade, sliding systems in aluminium. They have over 60 years of experience and came to India with that kind of experience with their products. They have partnered with various fabricators, and they have showrooms in Delhi and Mumbai as well, and Bangalore. Welcome, sir. I'm sure you will be moderating and asking questions which are very interesting to the panelists, and I request the panelists to stick on to the time. This is the introduction to all our panel members today. I welcome all those attendees to write your questions, put your questions on the chat box. At the end of the session, we will be shooting these questions to the panel member, whomever you are addressing it to. Please do stay safe. Please do attend carefully. There are so many things going to get discussed. Our main today's point of discussion is emerging trends in windows door designs. Innovative window door designs and materials is the point of discussion. We will be discussing design, functionality, materials, details, colors, sustainable, energy efficient living, tools and technologies for windows and doors, designing, as well as the installation part and how to make it more energy efficient, the daylight control, tough, safe and security standard, testing and durability, hardwares and automation. All these points will be discussed. Welcome to you all. Sir, Mr. John, I'm handing over the platform to you now. So please, panelists, be ready for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Reenu, and thanks to WFM for giving us the opportunity and giving me the opportunity to moderate the session. All the panel members are very high esteemed professionals in this field who have laid the benchmark, and we are all here to share our expertise and knowledge to benefit the viewers. So looking forward to a wonderful session over here. Firstly, for all the architects, the core, the heart of each of them is the design and functionality. And what we would like to see is, if you were to summarize in 2 sentences, each of your expectations on facade and fenestration from the design and functionality perspective. I understand that when you're talking about the design functionality, it is the entire building and where it goes and the whole per se. But let's look at it from the perspective of the facade and fenestration, the subject of this topic, and see from your perspective, from each of your individual perspectives in the fields that you're working in, and what you've done and what you've achieved, and what you would like to contribute to. I would first start with architect Satish Desai, if you can start.
Thank you. I'll start with the functional aspect first. For us, especially when we design homes and housing projects, lighting, ventilation, and thermal comfort become primary considerations. So positioning of openings, the sizing, and how much of it is openable, sliding, all of that. Along with thermal comfort, in certain cases, we are able to afford sandwiched, vacuum sandwiched kind of double pane glasses, but most other cases, it's a single pane glass. So insulation from heat and cold, insulation from noise, indoor air quality, all of this matters. The next level would be security. Safety and security, what I would like to call as 3B or 4B security: bugs, bad weather, burglar, and bullet. Bullet, of course, is only for high-end clientele, but most cases, bugs, bad weather, and burglar safety is important. So we end up providing grills, or nowadays solutions are there without grills. Facade and window maintenance becomes a very challenging aspect. It's something that is not considered as a part of design. I would be primarily interested in considering access to maintaining facades. When it comes to design aspects, connecting with nature would be the most primary thing for any of us. I'm sure all the other panelists also would be having the same thought, that if you are able to provide 100% connect between indoor, outdoor by having a fully collapsible sliding kind of, that would be the best scenario. And when on need, you sort of close it off and only get the view, or protect yourself from weather conditions. Minimalistic detailing, especially narrow styles, sleeker members, very easy operating hardware, all of that also matter. For us, in terms of design elements, we like to work with window seats, corner windows, windows turning into skylights, and then operable skylights, retractable roofs for atriums, and those are the kind of elements that we would like to work with.
Wonderful, wonderful, great. And you pretty much, I think, covered. I think the rest are going to wonder, what am I going to say? You covered all the areas as well. Interesting. I would like to now call upon Architect Cosima to give your opinion.
Anthony, you very correctly said that Satish has already covered most of the points. So I would, instead of that opportunity which you gave us for 2 sentences, I will convert that into 1 sentence, and I'll say that what is most important, whether I design or somebody else's design, is there are a couple of factors which we need to consider in the designing of a facade. One is functional, which is most important. It covers huge gamut of things which are required. And depending on the location, depending on the kind of building which you are doing, there are so many things which needs to do. Second is going to be aesthetics part of it, because ultimately this is it's a cover page of my book. It's cover page of my building. So it needs to look nice and great. That's what is all about glamour and other things. And the third and the most important part is sustainability. If I create a facade which is not non-sustainable, I think so we fail on a lot of fronts. So this is what I would summarize everything in terms of design. That is to go for any kind of building facade.
Wonderful, wonderful. I really like those 2 parts, cover page and sustainability. The key words is what I would pick out from this. Wonderful. Nice way of summarizing. Thank you, Dr. Cosima. Next, I would like to call upon Dr. Benny. If you can give in your opinion, please.
See, I use a lot of natural materials, and even when it comes to doors, windows, and fenestrations, and I mostly use timber. Although I've seen aluminum, in the 80s, people were using iron windows. You don't see them now at all. Even aluminum windows, which was locally manufactured, have disappeared. Now the big companies sell aluminum windows and doors. PVC doors, which came into the market, completely disappeared. Hardly people use it, never picked up in the market. And I think UPVC windows also, which is a lot of apartments are going with UPVC windows. I also, some projects, because of the cost factor, go with UPVC. But I think timber will always stay. It has its charm as a natural material, and it has many advantages. And timber is considered to be the most sustainable building material in the world, because it can be recycled, it can be reused, and it can be, the trees allow convert the carbon dioxide into oxygen, and when you use the timber in buildings, you don't allow the carbon in the timber to be to facilitate global warming. It is still there. So when people use more and more timber in buildings, I think we will be reaching sustainability in the broader sense.
Thank you, Dr. Benny. Wonderful, wonderful. In fact, what I read quite recently under the emerging trends is that in Australia, they're innovating more on timber, and they're now building multi-storied buildings using timber. So it's just not just restricting ourselves to just a villa or a small 2-3 story, but they're going for multi-storied buildings as well on timber. They've perfected the technology and they're going forward. It was something for you to look into as well. Right. The next person I would like to call upon is architect Sheila Sriprakash. You need to unmute yourself, ma'am.
I want to take a different aspect of this entire window, door, fenestration, opening, etc. As an architect, what we try to do is we try to carve out a space within the cosmos for us, which is an enclosure. And then after doing the enclosure, you create these openings. And so these openings are articulated or designed not only for exterior aesthetics, but also for the experience that you're creating in the inside. So, by proportioning your openings, by using particular geometries, like it could be a circular window, it could be a linear window, it could be a slit window, it could be a clear story lighting. And how you let in that light into your built space, which is primarily dark without these openings, is magic, really. So what we have to do in India is to let in the light, but cut out the glare. So window design, and more than anything else, it is this opening which connects humanity to the outer world. So what can we borrow from outside? Right now I'm sitting in my office. My office is pretty open. And I'm able to see trees which are about, almost 500 meters away or across the road from my window. And the pleasure and the calm that tree gives me is immeasurable. Because on a mundane day, when you're looking at something and when you're working, you look up and you see something, you're able to see the sky, you're able to see the flowers, you're able to see the leaves. It gives so much of pleasure. So I think windows are elements in a building skin. If articulated properly, can create true magic and can make humanity work better and move towards their goal, individual goal, whatever it is, whether it is studying, whether it is an institution, whether it is a manufacturing institution, whatever they do, it can make them do better. So that is my take on windows and doors.
Thank you, ma'am. Wonderful perspective. Wonderful perspective. In fact, the technology in the windows nowadays is such an extent that we can achieve what you're looking for, and not only limiting yourself to the vision, but also to the natural air that is outside. So you can have ventilation coming in. You want to cut out your acoustic while keeping the window open. That is also now possible. You want to keep the thermal comfort out while keeping the window partially open. That is also now possible. Technology has moved ahead in trying to bridge the gap that you're looking for. And there are windows and doors already available in the market that we can achieve it. Not much sold in India, but elsewhere, but can be easily made available here as well. Thank you, ma'am. Last but not the least, the youngest architect over here, Architect Ravideep, if you can give in your words, please.
So I guess some of the great points have already been covered. So I'll focus on the health and wellness spectrum. That is what we do at CDA mostly. So talking about healthcare and health and well-being, they're two completely different areas. And there's a slight change in approach when we design hospitals and when we foster health and wellness in other building types. So in healthcare, the slight change in approach is we consciously design windows to not be operable, because operable windows in hospitals can be a source of patient safety and letting in contaminants, letting in harmful microbes and bacteria. So that is one difference. Now, leaving that aside, I feel that two major areas that fenestration allow us to foster our health and well-being. One is the daylighting aspect, and other is the acoustics part. So regarding daylighting, what we can ensure as designers is to have optimal window to wall ratios somewhere between 20 to 60%. If the window to wall ratios exceed 40%, we need to have shading devices and glare. And then we have the daylight simulation part. So we often talk about a metric called lux to measure daylighting and artificial lighting. So what is different in the health and well-being spectrum is there's another interesting metric which is called the equivalent melanopic lux. So that metrics comes into play, and that actually measures how the human mind and reacts to light. So that is good for a circadian health and our overall health and well-being. So those are the health and wellness aspects.
Wonderful, excellent, Architect Ravideep. I think we have again the emerging trends that we have in the industry that's related to the healthcare is the antimicrobial and the antiviral handles and finishes that are coming up that is associated with it. And I think especially after the COVID and things that we are having, while the technology was there, but now there's been more focus, there is more impetus, and everybody is moving towards it. So we are here to augment your repertoire of doors and windows and options that you have. Right. Now, thank you everybody for each of your wonderful perspectives. Let's go delve a little bit more deeper into the micro aspects of it. Firstly, let's focus upon the material details and color. So my question to Architect Satish Desai to begin with again is, what are the emerging trends in materials, details, and colors that you have used in your recent projects and those that you would like to incorporate in your future projects? And the same question I'd be asking to Architect Sheila and to Architect Ravideep and Architect Kosiva. So you can have your answers ready as well. Yes, Architect Satish.
Thank you. I'll start with a quick preamble. I think in our country, we have the entire spectrum available to us, right from handcrafted, meticulously detailed, like Dr. Benny said, timber and many other materials. You kind of source hardware, source raw materials, and then actually build it on site or in a modest workshop. That at one end, and the other extreme end is systems and solutions that engineering companies and large fenestration companies provide, which integrates so much of the strength and durability aspects, the safety aspect, the compliances, and your technology integration itself. So we have kind of worked with all kinds of materials in different projects depending on the client's budget and contextual need. My personal interventions or engagements with technology have been using hinges which are of different varieties, particularly the resistance and stay hinges. Sliding folding systems, that's one of my favorites, collapse the entire opening into one side and get a complete connect with the outdoors. Floor springs and pivots. We have done access control, hardware integration, sensor operated doors that open automatically in front of stores. We have also worked with door communication, which normally we call as a doorbell phone or door communication related safety measures. So these are some of the things that we have used, but there are also a lot of other technological advancements I'm beginning to understand now, and we would love to integrate them as well.
Thank you, Satishji. I would pass it on to Sheila, ma'am.
Through the ages, I think materials have undergone, the priority of using A material versus B has shifted. And that is primarily because of global warming and to use less wood, to cut down less wood, etc. So how do we use rapidly renewable material to, for fenestration and doors is becoming a very important thing. But having said that, I think windows themselves, earlier, the concept of either the geometry, the size, the shape, the ornamentation, or whether it strives to connect the humanity to. See, it gives you audio connect, it gives you visual connect, it gives you a connect with nature. So, I think these are the more important. It is your window to the world, literally. And today, in times of COVID, when we are all locked in our homes and offices, you really crave for that kind of connect with society, with nature. So it is these windows, whether they are up in the roof or whether they are up on your higher up in your ceiling or on the walls or at eye levels, whether they open up into large vistas. Maybe on the beach, it would be a crime to have small windows. You could also use windows to frame your views. So internally, they are the frames through which you see the exterior. So how do you want to frame these views is another very important thing. So it depends on the location, on the geography, on the climate, and then you choose. So it is actually a very complex system. It is not very simple. It is quite intuitive. It is quite artistic. So when you meld all these together, and color is a tool, material is a tool that we can use, to enhance these effects that you want to create for doors and windows. Like doors with architraves are very different from sleek doors, pivoted doors, glass doors which are there but are not really there. So which give you the security, but at the same time, make the feeling that the space is much larger. So I think it's been a fabulous journey as far as I am concerned. And these 43 years, I think I had, originally when pivots were not available, tried, these long windows, linear long windows in wood with, where I went to the machine shop and created a pivot with a ball and with a, cylinder where we scooped out the ball and then put it on it. It was such a cumbersome thing, but we created those frameless windows, and it was sheer magic to see the windows move and, sheer magic to see what the windows have to bring to the people inside. So I think from there, right to now, when we try to create retractable windows, whether you try to create indoor spaces, which are, could become flexi spaces, which could become outdoor transition spaces, which are neither inside nor outside. So, there are various kinds of, auras or scenarios that an architect would try to create. And
Yeah.
so I find that material, color, tools, etc., is like your palette, and you choose what you want. You can combine them,
Yeah.
and combine them and create what you want for your building.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I would ask Ravidi to comment on the same.
I'd like to focus on the emerging trends that we see in the healthcare buildings today. So hospital buildings, are very energy intensive. So the focus of most of architects and designers in healthcare buildings is to reduce the energy load as much as possible. So technologies that focus on highly insulating glass and probably energy generation as well. So solar glass is something that is very welcome nowadays by healthcare professionals as well as the clients, because nowadays I feel the technology has reached at a point wherein solar glasses can offer about 50 to 60% VLT while generating significant amount of electricity. So that is one emerging trend. And secondly, what I believe is we as designers need to focus is on systems integration. So what I mean by systems integration is while a highly performing singular element such as a double pane, triple pane, or even gas film, vacuum insulated glass panels can be effective only if the entire assembly, which also includes the frame, the spacers, how all those elements are built together into one assembly, and how that particular assembly is being installed in the building needs to be taken care of. So, it's interesting to note if you do a thermal gradient map of the heat flow that happens in a typical window, so the insulation inefficiency of the frame extends to about 2.5 inches into the surface of the glass along the perimeter, which can be very significant and ineffective for the smaller size windows. So that is something we as designers need to simulate while at the design stage. So we have appropriate spacers, the materials such as insulated foam, pultruded polyvinyl and things like that, which are very effective. And we're thinking and simulating the U values of the entire assembly, not only the individual components. So that is something which is, I feel, very interesting.
Wonderful, sir, because there is an ISO code on this one, and India has actually adopted that code and the methodology to use it, and we are following that, and we have already done quite a few projects. There are many projects in India where many of the system providers have done the same calculations, consultants have done the same calculations. We are moving forward on that side.
Initially, there was no standard. 3 to 4 years back, there was no standard in India.
Absolutely.
We had to refer the NFRA, which is in the US. So, just things are changing, but that's a good sign.
That's very good. Excellent. Same question. Last person to give us a comment on that would be Architect Cosima.
So I would say that I practice my large practice is in hospitality, and hospitality window formations are absolutely of a different type. As what we spoke about healthcare, in hospitality most of the time we do not allow the guests to touch the windows. It is an enclosed environment because there is a larger concern which happens apart from taking care of human connection with the nature outside, vision outside, light and ventilation, light coming in. There is a larger concern in terms of sustainability is the energy guzzler air conditioner which is being used in hotels. And this is something which we need to, which is very, very important for us, and that factor becomes very, very critical when we are designing a window. So it's not only the window, as Anthony, as you would also agree with me that the kind of skin walls which we are creating or the external surfaces which we are creating and the amount of heat which is getting transferred. So today we are trying to use the best in the technology. We are trying to understand that I think so. The product line has changed. The materials have changed because of this. In between, we were using so much of UPVC because we also realized that aluminum was transferring heat. So much of heat was getting transferred through the metal surfaces. That small strip of aluminum which is there, and it was not a very efficient thing to happen. But now we have realized we are using thermal break windows. So those are the kind of technologies which we are incorporating in our design. So designing a window, according to me, is something, as I said, functionally, it has to be very, very efficient. It is most important to create the connectivity. It is most important to draw the line. As a matter of fact, you will find that most of the time when we design hotel, we ensure that the sill levels are absolutely at the bed level. So there is a great connectivity. Somebody sleeping on the bed is having a vision, whether it may be a green lush cityscape or something else, but that vision is never cut off. And we don't try to provide openable windows for the only reason is security and the health threat, because there are so many cases in the past which has happened with suicides and other things. Even if there are openable windows, they are all managed by the management. It is there by the housekeeping, and it is never engineering and housekeeping manage that. It is never given it. That openable flexibility of opening a window is not handed over to the guest. So so many factors are there. It's a huge topic on discussion.
Absolutely right, sir. I think hospitality design got maximum use of such vast good windows where your projects are all on either hillsides or some scenic places where it is.
So you from aluminum profile to your aluminum windows, your sizes, your wood windows. We are using all kind of, even in wood, we are trying to use the best of the best. We require our acoustical linings or profiles too, in order to avoid we use double what would we say?
DGUs.
Basically, if you speak in a Mistri's language, you use a double data windows, which are giving a better acousticals and kind of thing. Thermal seals are there. We do so many things at a given point of view.
Yes. I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we move on to the next question? So there is so much to discuss. So many things are there.
I would move on. Thank you, Renu, and thank you, Akhil Kozima, for this. I would move on to the next aspect of it, which is sustainability and energy efficient living. I mean, quite a few of us have touched base upon it. I will start with architect Sheila Sriprakash to start on the aspect of sustainability and energy efficient living.
Yeah. So sustainability is sometimes, especially when we are designing green buildings, people are shocked if we do not use DGU and performance glass. I think what we need to take account of is how do you strike the balance. So start off with the orientation, start off with the views, and then take a call on how do you get the views, how do you get the orientation, how does the orientation affect the views, which is the best orientation for thermal comfort, whereas which is the best orientation for views. Sometimes they are very conflicting. So how do you design the buildings? So, creating these transition spaces, creating huge awnings and, judges and overhangs so that the sun directly does not hit into the glass, whereas it has gives you the visual connectivity as well as, it gives you the thermal comfort. So sustainability is not something that you can achieve by doing this. There's no rule. So I have done a lot of, that is why I call my practice, the philosophy of design as reciprocity. So where you reciprocate to the different parameters. So if you take the climate as a stakeholder, you take the site as a stakeholder, you take the person using it as a stakeholder, the person management as a stakeholder. And you will find that, when each of their requirements and concerns are put together and mapped, you find that you are torn apart. So the resultant is, striking that subtle balance where you are able to achieve the best for everybody in the scenario. That is where technology and materials come in. So there we should be open to use technology, to use artificial intelligence, to use all the new disruptive technologies that have come in. Maybe even create virtual walls, what have you.
Absolutely.
So where you can try and see how you can retain and maintain this balance of harmony in order to achieve sustainability.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sheila ma'am. And I would pass it on to Agre Ravideep. And if you can combine this aspect of sustainability and energy efficiency in the current context of post-pandemic scenario, how does it affect us? How does this impact us? If you can give us some correlation, it'll be wonderful.
In terms of the effect of the current pandemic, I would say in terms of design, what we have in our hands is to allow and design our built environments in such a way that we foster our health and wellness in the long run. Now, when I talk about sustainability, for example, at CDA, we'd like to streamline sustainability into sustainable energy use, because sustainability as a term has a vast array of meanings and is open to interpretation. So how we approach sustainability is in two areas. One is the operational energy aspect and other is the embodied energy aspect. Now, regarding operational energy and its relationship with fenestration is huge. So I was reading a research study which stated that about 25 to 50% of the total energy losses that occur in a building occur at the fenestration level. So which is pretty significant. So when you talk about energy use and fenestration, there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done there. Now, the second aspect is the embodied energy aspect. So embodied energy, we generally tend to ignore, but is very significant and could be equal to 3 to 5 years of the building's operational energy in terms of magnitude. So to explain this, we can have a small example. If we use a UPVC window frame vis-a-vis an aluminum, we can straight away reduce the embodied energy aspect by about 300%, which is pretty significant. So, to sum it up, how we perceive the sustainability aspect is through life cycle assessment, and there are great platforms available today. So the two great platforms I'm aware of is called BEES, Buildings for Environmental and Economic Efficiency, and the second is the Green Building Studio. And I'm sure there are other platforms too. So, it's great to think if we invest about 15 to 20% additionally in terms of better performing material, and we're able to save significantly during the building or component's life cycle, it is very significant, and it's a win-win situation for both the client as well as the environment. And my second thought would be, so like factoring for operational and embodied energy can make our assemblies probably sustainable, but does it make it high performing? Probably not. So I was trying to look up the definition of what actually a high-performing building component is. And the only plausible definition I could find was at the US Department of Energy's website, which stated high-performing as something that integrates and optimizes on a life cycle basis, is energy conserving, offers safety, security, durability, and reliability. So there's a bunch of other factors that need to loop in for a material or a component to qualify as high-performing. And I'm sure high-performing aspect takes into account your health and well-being, your daily usage, the maintenance part, apart from only energy. So that is something which is very interesting, I think.
Thank you, Ravideep. I just wanted to add one point to it is, apart from the UPVC, now we have other materials like, Kusuma-ji had also mentioned, the thermally broken materials. You can achieve the base ratings as well as there's a new rating that has come up, which is catching up in Europe, and hopefully it'll get more prominent. That is the cradle to cradle.
Yes, I'm aware.
Yeah. So that is catching up. The passive housing is currently the norm or the go-to gold standard to achieve. And then now the cradle to cradle is now coming up, catching up. Hopefully soon, in a few years' time, we will see that in India as well. We are still a few years down the line to catch up, but just to know that these things are available and it is possible.
It takes into account the life cycle basis of a product and a material. That's very interesting.
Yeah. I would then pass it on to Dr. Benny, where he'll come with the timber aspect on the same sustainability and energy efficiency.
Yeah. timber buildings are becoming very popular. There are a lot of multi-storied buildings coming up in many countries. So many factories are being set up. The tallest building will be the 26-storied building, which will be completed this year in Vienna, which is Austria. In Austria, 80% of the building materials used, except some glass, etc., 80% of the materials used, including for the walls and the floors and everything, is timber. So timber will be the future building material because it can be renewed and reused and reduce global warming. Now, looking at the sustainability aspects, one thing which a common trend which you find in many of our built cities is abusive use of glass, full glass facade. It lets in all the heat and then you have to air condition the inside, which doesn't make much of a sense because now we have to understand that we don't have the energy to do the air conditioning, or it's adding to the global warming. And you can understand when you have glass in a cold climate where you have to let in the heat. But in a hot climate, in most parts of India, you let in the heat and then air conditioning. And many of these glass facades, if you look behind it, it will be a toilet. I think there is truthfulness in architecture is missing in some of these things. What is required at the, all these buildings, whether it's, the same, it looks the same whether it's coming up in Latin America or in Germany or in Indonesia or in India. The building looks the same. It has to be contextual. Design has to be contextual. We have to design according to the local climate. And it's high time we think about the energy crisis and global warming. And although we know the technology which can create an artificial environment which artificially create the thermal comfort, but I think we should move towards natural methods of air conditioning by which we increase the thermal comfort in a hot, humid climate like in Chennai or in Kerala, where I do most of my buildings. It's very important to have cross ventilation. So you should have a window to let in the wind as well as a window to let out the wind. Then only the cross ventilation happens. You have window like in a hotel room only on one side. There is only a space for window to, wind to get in. There is no space for wind to get out. So it's very important that you look at cross ventilation, some of the things which you can learn from our traditional buildings, how they have designed these buildings. And so I think it's high time. I'm not against high tech, but I think we need to look at our roots and low tech as well. We cannot completely rule out some of these things which we have been using all these years.
I'd like to say something in addition to what Benny has said. I think we are relying so much on smart technology that we are losing it in us to be smart. So I think the smartness has to emanate from the human being and, design sensibly. So not use technology for the sake of technology and boost the costs up and boost the energy consumption up. But, do it in a way which is responsive and responsible as a designer so that, we are able to move forward and understand that technology is to be used, but not misused and overused.
Absolutely, ma'am. It's only an enabler. It's only an enabler to help you achieve what you want to do.
Absolutely.
The smart way. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, each one of you. And I would move over to the last question, which is with regards to automation in doors and windows and the relative technology and innovation of hardwares and of doors and windows. So for that, I would first call upon again Architect Satish Desai to talk about it, and followed by Architect Cosima to close it for us.
Anthony, you asked me to choose between tradition and technology. I'll choose both. I have this problem. I cannot choose one.
Absolutely.
So I'll quickly go over these points. I know we are sort of running out of time.
Yeah.
Some of the technologies that have come across recently, which excite me, is one is electrochromic glass. it's a smart or dynamic glass. Same domain, Sage Glass has it, which kind of changes the tone or color of the glass based on the intensity of light falling on it, or user controlled. The other technology that I've heard recently about is solar PV integration in glazing. Ravi mentioned about it. Clearview PV is a company which is offering a Clearview glass, which is also a solar photovoltaic device. I've come across Schuko's products, which are quite exciting. One of them is Vento Life. I think this would find great application in both Ravi's and Cozima's buildings, where users don't have to open the windows, but you have a profile integrated ventilation device, which gives you cleaner air inside. So that's something that excited me. There's a company called Tentoff, which gives you a bug and burglar protection screen, which is tamper-proof, and you can put that, and you not cut the view of what is there outside. This mesh, I'm sure Benny sir will also like to use, because you have the safety, at the same time you have visibility. So, and another factor that I'm sure Ravi would have come across many times, smoke and heat exhaust ventilation system, which is not very popular in India in high-rise buildings, and especially in buildings like hospitals and high-rise hotels. It would be pertinent even in residential buildings, where venting out smoke and heat in a fire-rated sort of building would be, or fire-sensitive building would be a critical thing. Technology is now, of course, getting integrated into profiles. You don't even see the electronic device which is hidden inside a profile, and sensor and actuator based operations of windows, the chain operation windows, video door phones for communication, motorization of curtains, blinds, louvers, awnings, you name it. I think the technology is sort of advanced so much that we can just imagine, and then the solution would be available to us. So this is what I would like to, in summary, quickly round up, so that we have time for question answers.
Thank you, Satish ji. I think you've left very little for Cozima ji to touch base upon, but no, it's a challenge for him to take up from what you've left and complete it. So leave it to you, Cozima ji.
His philosophy of it, I'm sure.
Absolutely. You're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
So, anybody? Yeah, Sheila ji?
No, I just had to leave because I thought 5:30 we'll be completing it, but so I was just wondering whether I could take your permission and leave. Anthony, is that okay?
Sure, ma'am, no problem. Any questions addressed to you, we will get their contact details and we will send across to you, get your answers, and then email it back to them. For sure.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Right.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much being there in the panel and for wonderful views on sustainability and sustainable buildings, natural ventilation, and natural way of building buildings. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Cozima ji, the ball is in your court.
So there is always a question, how is technology helping us in designing? So technology is always to be used as an aid in terms of design. If you want to create a great architecture, you need to be fundamentally create a basic sensible architecture design which is required. So I would say that there is nothing wrong in doing large windows or glazings or whatever, but as correctly it needs to be little contextual. If you are doing that, you need to ensure that yes, you do certain other things also which are required if things don't permit. Because probably I'm not sure, but when you do large buildings, there are challenges which are available. Because generally, when you do a house or a large premises, residential premises, you are not too much worried about the bylaws which are there. But in larger buildings, if you come to city like Mumbai, you have projection which is at 750 mm from the beam bottom, and that's all you have projection. That's all you have. So you need to make the building looks nice. You need to work under the parameters. You need to adhere to the bylaws, local bylaws. So there are a lot of factors which will come into it. As far as automation is concerned, I think so. Satish has spoken excellent about it. There are few factors, few things which I was not aware about, which he really helped me in understanding those, making me aware about it. So, but apart from that, in hospitality, we keep on using technologies, especially those automized doors and a lot of other things which are there. So, as far as technology is concerned, in terms of glass, in terms of hardware, in terms of operations, I think so. We are all trying to use the best of the technology in order to get more efficiency and more better. So I have a very common problem in explaining the client why we need an airlock lobby. So if you don't have a space of having an airlock lobby, you need to have a revolving door. Even if you want to do a revolving door, you don't do automatic revolving door, do a manual revolving door, because this is something which is very important. It is important. So I at least I have 5 debates or 5 to 7 debates in a year, huge debates with the client, trying to explain them that either we have space to provide an all-neck lobby or we do a revolving door.
Thank you, Kozimachi. I think we've pretty much covered what we had set out. And if there are any closing statements anybody would like to make, or we will go direct to the question and answer session.
I'd like to share one small point regarding automation. So, I mean, we always talk about life cycle assessment and striving a balance between technology use. So, I mean, a recent study, which again I was referring, suggested that about 74% of building users did not control the manual shading devices, which could have resulted in significant energy savings and positive impacts on their health and wellness. So some amount of automation can be very helpful and sustainable.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the topics that Beniji had touched based upon about heat coming in majority through the openings, we can also provide very nice creative ways of shading devices and cut out the solar radiation coming into your building. It's how ingenious you become and creative you become in cutting that off and giving you more VLTs inside. Right. So, anyone else would like to share their last points before we go on to the Q&A? No? All good? Okay, Renuji, the ball is in your court. If you can get on the Q&As.
We have a question from Siddharth. He's asking Architect Revdeep, since Windows in your focus, of course, he's addressed it to Revdeep and Architect Kozima. Since Windows in your focus segments are inoperable, are windows treated as part of facade when viewed from outside? Does building integrated solar feature in your design for windows to achieve both aesthetic and utility? This is the question which is asked by Siddharth. I would put forward the question to Revdeep as well as Architect Kozima, or anyone can answer this.
Right. So, I would say in terms of integration, as an architect, we need to factor for both the aesthetics as well as the functionality. So when we talk about daylight penetration, I mean, there are interesting ways today to incorporate ideal amounts of VLT as well as cutting glare, as you were mentioning. So, I mean, if we have a full glazed window for a patient room, what we would ideally do is to have the center visible spectra of the window as a clear or a vision panel, and above and below, if they are glass, they could be fitted or translucent to cut glare. So things like that give you a more monolithic appeal and are functional at the same time.
So when it comes to hospitality, we feel that the guest comforts are really very, very important. And when they are inside the room, because most of the time, if you would have seen building probably 15, 20 years or more than that, you will find that you can identify hospitality hotel buildings very easily, because you find them with pocket windows. You have series of windows of uniform size all across the facade, and that's where you can easily identify them as a hotel building. But today the building scenario, the dimensions and the dynamics of the facade is changing. I would say we want to ensure that the guest staying within the room is so comfortable that even we don't try to use tinted glasses outside. We try and use as far as possible high energy efficient glass, clear glasses with so that there is the vision which he is looking at. If he is looking at a greenscape outside, the color of that green should not change by the tint of the glass. So that is a kind of thought process which goes into glass selection for the window also when we are doing hotels. So it is very, very important. Architecture and inner spaces cannot be separated because it is an integral part of it. All of it is supposed to be one huge holistic experience which is there. When you are inside, you have a different experience, and when you are looking the building from outside, you have a different experience.
So it's inoperable windows. I think it is there, used in all many of the hospitality designs also. The person wants to know whether it comes as a part of the facade or the fenestration system.
So wherever there are brand guidelines, wherever we work as an architect as well as ID, we try and incorporate what is required. For example, there are few fixed windows which are possible. We would like to make it because it becomes more economical and more efficient in terms of acoustics. But there are certain fire departments, certain CFOs who are asking for compulsory in each of the room they consider as a glazing, and they ask for a 10% opening of that window. So we have done some buildings, some hotels in Mumbai also where we have made it 100%. We have made one openable panel, which gives us a double efficiency as such. We don't need those Spider-Mans coming down for cleaning it up, and it can be cleaned locally from the room level. And the second is that we have an openable window which is easy to open during the in case of fire. But the biggest point is that when we are doing this, the CFO, we have been trying to get this point across to the CFO that these windows are non-openable windows because of certain other fire and life safety measures. These windows are not openable, and those windows, the key to open that window is lying with somebody in housekeeping or engineering in the basement. So when there is a fire, how are we going to operate it is something which is there. And there are so many other factors which are there we incorporate in for fire in doing at various stages for fire separation of fire staircases, creating various fire zones which are there. We create fire rated doors so that, and the biggest problem when such kind of windows are created is the problem is that there is a smoke evacuation systems which are created along with it. So you don't need those facade windows to be having one small openable window when you can make it much more efficient by using one large glass single pane windows by avoiding that openable panel of window.
In fact, the new NBC also has got clear fire regulations, and every state has also got its own regulations on what part to be followed from the NBC, and I think it's getting widely followed as well. More and more states are getting following the new NBC norms.
Yes, Anthony, the biggest challenge used to be most of the people when there is a fire hazard, people die because of smoke, and lesser number of people die because of burns. True. So if we can take care of smoke very well, I don't think so we need all the windows to be openable. And we try and bring in treated fresh air in order to make it efficient as well. But yes, if I'm building a home for myself, a house for myself, I'm not going to try and make those fixed windows. I'm going to make it ensure that I can open up 100% like what Satish is mentioning about, that we make it sliding folding to make it as far as beautiful as possible, and we connect with the nature.
Yeah. In fact, the NBC 2016 philosophy changed from earlier 2015 or 2005, from the earlier philosophy. One, as you rightly said, from the smoke, how do we try and get the smoke out and have less mortality from smoke? That is number one. And number two is, how can you get the people out of the building as soon as possible? How can you make them safe? Rather than getting the people confining that, blocking them over there and then trying to rescue them, it is more to how to get them out of the building as quick as possible. The entire philosophy, the entire structure, how the NBC had done was based upon these two fundamental perspectives.
Absolutely.
Sir, one question to Benny, sir, Dr. Benny. There is a question from the students. They are asking, in case if you are given a choice, the wood has become very expensive to use in urban projects. So, what would be the alternate material which would you suggest for a sustainable construction?
See, what is being used now in all these multi-story buildings is cross-laminated timber. I mean, it's plywood is very thin plies. These are a little bit more thicker plies, but cross-laminated so that the strength goes up. And these are mostly not teak or any expensive timbers. These are treated timbers, mostly what is being used in Europe is mostly pine, so which is not very expensive. So the raw material is timber, but which are not normally used for buildings. But here, even the plywood timber is not normally used in building construction. They are the lesser quality timber which is used for making plies. So there is always this material. I'm a little bit skeptical about many of the new materials which is coming. I will wait for 5-10 years, because when fiberglass came as a material, people used it for car porches and everything. Now nobody uses it. Now polycarbonate will be used for another 10 years. 10 years down the line, nobody will use it. And many of the materials are found to be harmful also in the longer run. The air conditioning technology which was used earlier, now we have found out it is depleting the ozone layer. So now we are saying the European countries and the Western world has banned it from 2020 onwards. We will phase it out in 2040 as per the Kyoto Protocol. So we have to be a little bit careful about using some of these materials. There should be proper tests and this thing. As far as possible, we should learn from some of the mistakes which the West has made. I'm not, as I said earlier, I'm not against the Western concepts and philosophies, but some of the mistakes they have made, they have admitted and changed it, but we are not willing to change it. See, for example, in Europe, you will get plywoods without formaldehyde. It is very, very difficult to get plywoods without formaldehyde, and formaldehyde is a carcinogen. It's a kind of, so there are so many issues, and the companies don't speak it out. That is my take on it. So we have to be very careful about many of these modern materials. Every 3 years you get a new glass material. Every 3 years you get a paint. And you look at an advertisement of a paint 20 years ago, they will say no moss, no lichen. Even now they will say fiber technology, no moss, no lichen. What is this? I mean, this is my I'm a little bit careful about using this material, but I'm not against modern technology or modern those things.
Okay. So
just to support you, sir. In fact, I believe in NBC as well. There are some new codes that has been released by Bureau of Indian Standards, where they've even acknowledged bamboo as a structural member, and they have given you codes on how to go about designing structures using bamboo. So they are also proactive in supporting timber. So I think you have a lot more friends up there in BIS.
Yeah.
So Cosima sir, next project, hospitality in bamboo.
So we were trying to do something, one structure in bamboo, and unfortunately we had to actually scrap our design and restart again, because we couldn't find a vendor who would do a great bamboo work, because only people who are available are coming from Assam and Bangkok. Most of them.
I think you needed to contact Dr. Benny the next time.
No, let me tell you. So the problem with bamboo and many. So we are doing a museum in Kerala, and we are used Kayar-based material instead of the plywood. But the vendor is almost putting it as expensive as the marine plywood when they have made it from cheap or short fibers, which is not used for kaya making, but kaya based. But the pricing by which these bamboo floors and all of these comes is almost slightly 10%, 15% lesser than that of the timber floor. Then why should you want to experiment with some of these materials? Because it is not the cost of the material and the normal profit. You look at who is your competitor and then price it accordingly. That's
the major problem. That's a major problem. That's why most of the time when we do ecotel hotels, we realize that there is so much of limitation of material which is available. And if somebody finds that material, you find that it becomes really very, very expensive. Why? And it's really very difficult to understand why it is so expensive.
Now, I agree with Kusima. This is the problem with the bamboo and many of the products. When we want to use it on a large scale, pricing becomes a very big disadvantage. Although they are not spending that much money, I'm sure, because it's made from waste products and waste meat. That is why none of these alternate. We still build buildings with bricks and concrete and steel because of these reasons.
So we are doing one project in Haridwar where the owners are for Pilibhit, and we wanted to take that regional nuances and create flutes. Pilibhit is very, very reputed for their flutes because, and somehow or other, I realized that I wanted something which was large. बोलते सर नहीं आ रहा है आजकल बैम्बू आसाम से नहीं आ रहे हमारे पास. So look at that. Pilibhit producing the flutes, maximum amount of flutes in India is getting bamboo from Assam. There is no local resources. So they said that people are not even.
Thank you so much, everyone. I think we are
think we've extended.
our time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We have a few more questions on the chat box, one on BIPV and one on what is after pandemic effect on facade, post pandemic effect on facade. These are all things which I think I'll put it on the group. Please provide your views on these topics. I'll post it to the person who has asked the question. Thank you so much for the panel members for being here, spending your time and parting your knowledge with all our viewers. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renu.
Thank you so much.
You guys.
Have a wonderful evening.
Have a very nice evening. Stay safe and stay
Yeah.
home. Stay masked and be
Thank
safe
you,
from
everyone.
the pandemic.
Safe.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.